Hello everyone. Today I am going to teach you how to measure a 16 box grid and also a 4 box grid. It just depends on how technical you want to get in each assignment. So you will need an eraser, a pencil, a drawing paper. There are several assignments that you will need to create a measurements or a grid. So that's why I'm going over this. And it's the same video for all the assignments. The first assignment will be animal enlargements. So you're going to choose two of these. I already printed a grid for you. You should have it in your art kit. If not, you're going to have to measure this on your own. And this is a 16 box grid. It's the same amount of boxes and all of the grid assignments, grid enlargements, the same amount of boxes that you see in your drawing are the same amount of boxes that you see here. They're just larger. Remember, we've talked about you have to draw exactly what you see in each box. So if there's nothing in a box, then you draw nothing, or like this tiny little shape. That's how you enlarge a drawing, and it's you kind of draw like precisely, which is great, especially if you're scared of drawing. This is easier because you focus on one section at a time, opposed to the whole thing. Like if I were to tell you, draw an owl, you would probably get scared. But if I were to tell you, okay, draw an owl but section it off, it's easier to think of drawings as lines and shapes than it is to think about it as a whole. You kind of isolate it, and I talk about it on Schoology on the assignments, why this method is and this technique is really great to do, especially when you're learning how to draw, because it does get a little bit intimidating. So the 16 box grid is good to do, especially if you have a drawing or a portrait that's really hard that you're gonna have a hard time with. The smaller the grid, the more boxes the grid has, the easier it is for you to draw, because you isolate sections even more. You break down, you chunk down your drawing. And if you're trying to do like a quick drawing, a quick grid enlargement, then you just do like a 4-point grid, like a 4 box grid, and it'll be easier. And I'll show you how to do both of them. If you don't have this, you can print it out yourself if you have a printer at home, or you can just take the drawing paper that's in your art kit, and I will teach you how to draw. The first thing you have to do when you're doing a grid drawing, you have to measure the paper. This paper obviously is a printer paper, so it's a lot smaller than the drawing paper. This one measures, and I think I talked about this before last semester. When you measure something, and I'm sorry I couldn't find my smaller ruler. When you measure something, you have to look at your ruler, and I gave everyone a ruler, the wooden ones. You don't start measuring from the edge unless that's the first line. You look at the first line. Like this one, the first line starts here. So that's where you measure. In each one, it has like intervals of 1 inch. So each of these is 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. And this one is 24 inches, which is 2 feet. But we're not going to need all this. With the 12-inch one, which is like the generic typical ruler that you always get, I just can't find mine right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to measure your paper first. So you're gonna vertically align the ruler, the first line, the first mark. You have to align it with the paper and measure. It measures 9 inches. So you're gonna do half of 9. What's half of 9? Half of 8 is 4, and half of it's 4 by 5, so it's 4.5. Half of 9 is 4.5. So half of 8 is 4, and then you have the 1 inch. So half of 1 inch is half an inch. It's like $1. Remember, $1.50. So what we're gonna do is we're going to look for 4, which is here, and then half of that, which is right in the middle between 4 and 5. Remember, 1 inch, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch. I believe I went over this last semester when we were creating the watercolor paintings, and I think there's a video on the YouTube channel that you can watch. So again, half of 9.5 is 4.5, so we go 4 and then half. We draw a line going up, because we're gonna use these guidelines to create our straight line, so it has to be going up like a little one. And do it lightly, because it's always easier to erase in case you make a mistake. So when we're doing this, I'm gonna show you how to do the 4-point grid first. Then we're gonna draw another line we're going to measure it twice, because if we just measure it once and we flip our ruler over, we run the risk of not doing a straight line, because you can't really see exactly where the line starts or ends. So it's always good to have 2 guides. Unless your paper is really large, then you need 3. So it doesn't matter exactly where you place it, as long as there's like a separation. Again, you line it up. 4.5 is right here, line going up. I like to flip my ruler over because mine has these little gaps here. And then I align both of these marks that I made. That way, when I'm drawing it, it's straight. And the reason why it's a line going up, because the ruler is also going up now. So you just draw it lightly. I'm doing it a little bit darker so you can see it, because somehow my lighting isn't all that great today. Then, so I measured it in half vertically. I'm going to flip it over horizontally, and I'm going to measure. This measures 12 inches. What's half of 12? 6. So I'm going to look for the 6. Again, put my ruler where the first line starts. Where's the 6? Draw a line going up. Do it again. I always do it twice just in case, so I can make my line straight. Otherwise, it's not going to be straight. It's going to be off. Flip my ruler over. That's just me. You don't have to do that. Align this line with this line. And I have... So I've divided my paper into 4 equal parts. That's what you're going to need to do for 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 assignments. So there's going to be like 6, 7, 8 drawing assignments. After you do this one, which I'll show you how to do all these 16 boxes right now, but this is a very basic 4-point scale grid, 4-box grid, however you want to call it. The next thing you're going to be drawing and shading is a skull or a rib cage, and I have several of them, and I've kind of eyeballed these. Like, I didn't really measure them. I did them on the computer, so some of them are a little off. So what I did, I was just trying to divide each of these into 4 boxes so it's easier for you to draw. Again, if you would like to make them smaller, then you're gonna have to go in and measure them yourself, because I couldn't do it to all of them. So if you see, this one has 4 boxes. If I flip it this way, obviously this drawing is vertical, right? So if I'm gonna do this, I have my grid already drawn. I have my grid drawn here. You're gonna realize that this is wider than this, but it's okay. So I'm gonna start drawing. So you're gonna have to do a 4-point grid for the rib cage drawing, which you're gonna have to create 2 enlargements. So what you're doing is you're enlarging it. I don't want to see them this size. They have to take over the entire paper. That have to be wide. And I have examples of previous assignments that kids have submitted on Schoology, so you can look at. I don't want to see tiny little drawings. I don't want to see medium. I want you to take up as much space as you can. And even if you can't, like, you realize that you draw larger, because most of us do that. And if you're off a little bit, that's fine. Remember when we did the upside down drawing, I told you guys, if his head is chopped off or part of his body, that's fine. Okay? So for this one, again, 4-point grid. And then I'm going to give you 2 different flower studies. One like this. Again, it's the same thing. But if you look at this is more of a rectangular box, and this is more of a square. So I'm going to teach you how to measure a box that looks more like this right now. Then for the next one, you're going to do another photo enlargement, another flower enlargement, and it's the same thing. But if you look at the picture this way, it is horizontal. It's no longer vertical. The rib cage is vertical, but now this flower is horizontal. So I flip it this way, and again, whatever I see in each box, I'm going to draw it and I'm going to shade it in, because these are line drawings, but these are not. This is actually like a drawing, like you have to shade it in. Okay, so again, if you look at your paper and you see that it already has a grid that has 4 boxes, so you think to yourself, okay, so I'm going to make a 4-box grid. How do I do that? Again, I'm going to measure the paper. If you're using a regular printer paper, you're going to have to measure that. And if you're using the drawing paper that I gave you, then you're going to have to measure that, right? So you measure it. Half of, what is this? 8.5 by 11. So 8.5. Half of 8.5 is 4 1/4. So that's the middle. And it's by 11. Half of 11 is 5.5. That's the middle. That's that paper. But again, if you want to do it like this, let's do it again. It doesn't matter where you start, vertical or horizontal. You're going to do the same thing on both sides. So I align my ruler to the first line where it begins. Make sure that it's straight. It measures 9. So half of 9 is 4.5. I'm going to look for my 4 and then my half. Draw the line going up. This will become a guide for you to draw a straight line, because you really can't draw a straight line. I can't even cut a straight line. That's why I depend on the ruler a lot. 4.5. I'm going to do it again. Why am I doing it twice? Because I need to have at least 2 different guidelines, 2 different marks. That'll help me when I flip my ruler over the same direction. Even if it's this way, I just have a hard time with these little indentations here, so I always flip it so it's straight. I align this one and this one, and then I draw my straight line. I would do it lightly in case you need to erase. Then I measure this way again. Half of 12 is 6. I line it up again, 6, and then I flip my ruler over. Again, that's just, I always do, and I line it up. Why is it that I need 2 different guides? Because if I only had one, I'll be off. Like I'm telling you, I can't even cut a straight line, so I need to have 2. Don't draw 3 or 4 because that's confusing. If you have like a bigger paper, yeah, but 2 is enough. And where do you draw the lines? It doesn't really matter, as long as you have one like around here, one there. It's fine. That doesn't need to be exact. You're only using these lines so you can draw a straight line. Okay, so there's my 4-point grid, my 4-box grid that I will need for my rib cage enlargements, my skull, and I have skulls, bigger, different skulls that I've added. So again, if you see that your rib cage is vertical, flip the paper over. It's the same thing. So if you see that I have a box that has 4, then you need a 4-point grid. And it's the same measure, the same thing for all the assignments. For this one too. But this one, instead of it being vertical, it's horizontal, right? Now, there's one. So you're also going to do a portrait enlargement where I'm going to give you like 15 portraits of people. And remember, a portrait is from the shoulders up of a person. And you're also going to divide it in 4. If you want to divide it even more so you'll become more precise, then I'm going to show you how to do that later. It's up to you, whatever type of grid you want to use. And then also, you're also going to do a self-portrait where I'm going to have you take a picture of yourself or have someone take a picture of you, and you're going to also create a grid. So you create your self-portrait. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drawings where you're going to do drawing enlargements, okay? Most of them will require a 4-point grid. If you want to add more, that's fine. So I already went over this, remember? How do I do it? Half of this, half of that.